This was a video, or not the video, but this was a liturgy that was read during our men's retreat last week. And the reason I share it with you today, because as I heard it, it brought up in my mind different times throughout my life where I've asked God, why aren't you using me? Why aren't you using me to do great things in my life? And sometimes it was even as a minister, I've been in those moments of God, why does it feel like I'm just going through the mundane and I'm growing spiritually, but why aren't you using me to do something greater for your kingdom? Why aren't you using our church for something greater? And I came to realize I don't think I'm the only one. Have you ever been there? Have you ever asked that question? Felt that way? Feel like God isn't using you or doing as great of things as other people you know? And sometimes that's what we do, right? We start to compare ourselves to others. Like I said, I think most of us have had these moments. And I also think you may have had these moments and have gotten through them, but you may also know people who are in these moments right now that are struggling with this themselves. And so what I want to encourage you, whether you're asking this question or someone is asking you, does God not think I'm worthy to be used? I want to encourage you with this verse that Jesus told his apostles in John 14:12. It says this, "Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do, because I am going to the Father." I just see what Jesus is saying there is that if you have faith in Jesus, he will use you to do his great works. And when he says greater works than I, he's not talking about bigger miracles, but greater works in the sense that he brought so many people, but after his death and resurrection and his spirit in us, we are able to bring in more people into Christ than Jesus did during his ministry. And that as the church continues to grow, we can do it more and more. And we are all to be a part of that work, and he will use you. But the question comes, what's the secret to God using me for great things? If it doesn't feel like he is, why isn't he? Well, in Matthew 14, we're going to see that Jesus does 3 miracles. And what's very interesting in these 3 miracles is he asks his apostles, or even specifically Peter, to do specific things that are going to be great if they do them. But we're going to see them fall short every single time. And as they fall short, we're going to see Jesus as he reacts and what he does, how he uses what they have based on what they're willing to do and what he wants them to do so that he can use it. Because that's what we're going to see today, is that God doesn't just say, do this and I'll do great things through you. He says, hey, I want you to do great things, but as you go to do great things, make sure you have a heart like this. Make sure you approach it this way. Make sure you do it my way. And we're going to look at what that is today. And we're going to start in Matthew 14. And in verses 13 through 15, I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit because Jesus has come to a desolate area. And he's actually trying to get away from people because he's just found out that John the Baptist has been beheaded. And he's trying to get away, and he goes to this area to have some time alone with his apostles. But as he gets there, there's a large crowd of people waiting for them. And what's interesting is in this verse it says he has compassion on them. And he begins to teach and heal them, and he's spending time with them here in this desolate area. And then it's starting to get later in the day. And the disciples look at this and they go, these people need to eat. Hey, Jesus, let's send these people out into the markets to go get food for themselves. Let's go ahead and cancel. Let's call it a day, all right? And let's go send them out. And this is what Jesus says in Matthew 14, 16 through 20. But Jesus said, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They said to him, "We have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowd to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces left over. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. What's very interesting about this story and this not just a story, but what happens here, this scene, is it's sometimes hard to fathom feeding that many people. And what I learned was The Chosen, if you've watched this series, it's about the life of Jesus and how he picks his apostles and takes them through. Well, they wanted to recreate this feeding of the 5,000. So what they did is they went out and they got 5,000 men to just volunteer. And then they got 5,000 women and children too. So they had 10,000 people all together volunteering as extras, dressed up in all these costumes and just sitting there. And this is actually a picture of the crowd that's there. Now, I had a professor from college who actually got to be a part of this. And he shared this with me. He said, "You know what was most amazing? They fed us. Because they said, we don't want you to go hungry. And we figured if Jesus is feeding the 5,000, we can too." And they fed them Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And they did these Chick-fil-A box sandwiches. But I did some digging, and you know what it costs for that? With a discount that they give with everything else, $75,000 to feed all those people that one meal. So now imagine that you're the disciples in this situation. We know from other accounts that it actually would have cost a lot. Mark 13:37 says that would take more than half a year's wages. And what we see there is that's the disciples going to Jesus when he says, "Feed them," giving them this command. The disciples go, we can't. Others, I'm sure, are having anxiety, just overcome them. And some of you, I imagine that would be you. If I said right now, "Hey, Mary, I need you to feed everybody after church. Figure it out. We'll be done because I'm going to go longer today, okay? Feed them all. We're going till 6 tonight, so I need you to find something to feed people." Does you get anxiety right away? It's anxious, right? It's something that's going to just pour in right away. And what's interesting is they do come to Jesus, and he goes, "Well, what do you have? Let's figure that out first." And they say, 5 loaves and 2 fish. And you know what? They didn't go, "Jesus, we got 5 loaves, 2 fish. Let's feed the people." They go, "This is all we got." And actually what it turns into is they feel like it's not enough. They don't do the great task God has given them because they don't feel like they have enough to give to God. But this is where Jesus reveals that he will use our gifts when we give him our best, or actually all that we have. When Jesus said, "Bring the food to me," what I was encouraged by in that is the apostles did it. And they did it without complaining, without asking Jesus, "Hey, can we hold back 1 loaf for us so that we can eat later? Can we do this?" They didn't even try to hide a loaf, right? They gave all of it to Jesus and said, "Okay, Jesus, it's yours. You use it." And Jesus takes this, and what he says is, basically, "I don't care what little you have. Give me all you have." And as they gave all they had, the best to Jesus, he took what they thought was a little to not only feed the people, but to have 12 basketfuls of broken pieces left over. And I want to say this too. There's an image that a lot of people think that there were leftovers and it was loaves of leftovers. No, Jesus just kept breaking pieces off of the bread and the fish, and it just kept coming. And so when they got it, they didn't get a new loaf. They just got a broken piece off of that one loaf. And it just kept coming and coming and coming. Too often, we say, I see a need. Just like the apostles. We see there's a need, and I want to help, but I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of resources or experience. And what we end up doing is going, I can't do anything. And you do nothing about it. And we don't let God use us for something great in that moment. But 2 Corinthians 9:6 says this, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. If you never give God what you have, no matter how small, He will never use it. He will never use you for great things if you never give Him something to work with. But once we give God the best of what we have, He will use it in greater ways than you could ever imagine. One way that I've seen this recently is our kids and families, when Ides was here, were given these little fish, all right? And they were told, put your spare change in there. And they've just been filling them up with spare change. And I brought 3 up on the stage, and I couldn't figure out where to put the other, I think, 10 or 15 that are already filled up from when the guy came back in January. And what's very interesting about this, you may be going, well, it's just spare change. It's no big deal. It's just the stuff that we don't use, right? But those fish feed one person a meal for every 25 cents that are inside of them. And when they feed those people, it shows the love of God to those people. And I've seen videos from Ides and other places that when people are given these meals, it changes their life so much that they end up coming to Christ and end up becoming ministers for Christ. And they go around and start sharing the gospel. And now all these people are coming all because we filled a bank with the change that's filling our cup holders in the car that we didn't want. And that's just giving God a little bit of what we have. I know of people, too, who have said, you know what, I don't have a lot of time, but this person just looks down over here. You know what? They look sad. Something seems off. I'm going to give my time and go talk to them. I'm going to give them comfort. I'm just going to give this to God, and whatever He wants done with it, done with it. And what they don't realize in the moment is that person was contemplating suicide. And I will tell you, there are people in this room that some of you have been that person that went and talked to someone that was contemplating suicide, and you don't know it. But that person came to me later and said, hey, I was contemplating suicide, and this person from your church came and talked to me. And this has happened about 10 times since I've been here at First Church of Christ. And you not only saved their life by saying, God, I'm going to give you my time, but several of those people ended up giving their lives to Christ. That because of that act you did, not only saved their life physically, but spiritually. And God used that simple time of just sitting there and talking to them, maybe even praying with them, to do something great, even though it seemed like something little. And the reason this is because of 2 Corinthians 9:10. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for life will also supply and increase your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. I want to encourage you in this. Let's not hold back because of what we have is too small, but give all we have to God. And then wait and see how He uses it in other situations for His greatness. I want to challenge you to that. And after this, Jesus goes one step further. He sends His apostles ahead by boat. And he says, go by boat. And he actually ends up going and he dismisses the people. And then he goes up into the mountain to pray, into the mountainside. And that's when we find the next miracle or great thing Jesus does in Matthew 14:24 through 29. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost," and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. I want you to see here, Jesus uses our lives when we step out in faith. Again, the apostles don't complete the task Jesus gave them. Jesus said, "Go and continue ahead of me." And in John 6, in his account of this miracle, he says, "Go to Capernaum." And here's what's really interesting is Capernaum is only 6 to 7 miles away from where they were at. So he sends them 6 or 7 miles, and that should have taken 3 to 4 hours. And thanks to Mark chapter 6, we know that they left at evening time, which was between 6 and 7. So they probably leave close to 6 p.m. And now it's the fourth watch of the night, which means it's between 3 and 6 a.m. And when you read John's, it says that they only rode 3 or 4 miles. So here it is. They've been going, and they have only gotten 3 or 4 miles in a 6 or 7 mile journey that should take 3 to 4 hours. And they're already 9 hours in and haven't completed the job Jesus told them to. But the difference is, it's not because of anything they're doing. It's because the windstorm is beating on them so bad, and it's beating the boat head on, that no matter how hard they row, they aren't getting anywhere. That it's the world around them that's preventing them from moving forward. Do you ever feel like that? Like you're trying to do great things for God, and you say, "God, use me for greatness," and then all of a sudden, illness hits you or your family. And then on top of that, the car breaks down, you get bad news, you get fired, this happens or that happens, and it just feels like everything keeps piling up against you. And you go, "I would help, but I can't because I've got to take care of this person. I would help, but I can't because of this or that." That happens to all of us, right? It feels like the storms of life have stalled us out. But I want you to see something. As the apostles continue to struggle, Jesus shows up. And we see in Mark 6:4 through 8, this is very interesting. It says this, "Seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, at about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea." I want you to see this. Seeing them straining at the oars, he came to them. Jesus saw their struggle. From where he was at, he knew they were struggling and couldn't go any further, so he goes to them. But I want you to see this also. In Mark 6:48, it also talks about he was going to go past them. Here is one thing we've got to see. He came to them because he knew they were struggling, but he also wanted them to say, "Jesus, we need you." He was going to walk past them so that they would call out, "Jesus, help us." There are some scholars even believe this, that he was going to walk out and walk the path that if they just followed his path, they may have actually made it by rowing if they had just followed the direction he walked. Don't know if that's true or not. But what we do know is in Hebrews 13:5 through 6, that when we're in the middle of storms in life, we need to remember He himself has said, I will never desert you, nor will I ever forsake you, so that we confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What will man do to me? And I want you to see the apostles, they get scared. We'll talk about that in a second. But when Jesus says it's me, Peter begins to realize this may actually be Jesus. And he asks Jesus, call me out. Tell me to come up. Tell me to walk on water. And I want to tell you, that is a big step of faith in the first place. To be able to say, God, use me. Show me that this is where you want me to go. God, call me out. Show me that you're there. And then when Jesus says, all right, Peter, come. Peter steps out of the boat. He steps in faith. And I want you to see Jesus gives Peter the strength to rise above the storm, to walk on the water. So as we go through storms, Jesus is telling us the same thing. Trust me and I will help you walk through this storm. And I'll help you walk through it with peace and joy. Not drowning in anxiety and everything else as you try to swim through it. You'll be able to walk through it with peace and joy that I have given you. And in that, be a great testament to those around you. That I will use it not only to do a great thing of you walking through without anxiety, but you walking through without anxiety, will everybody else around you will go, wow. We're going to see this with Peter, that the other apostles end up worshiping Jesus because of what God did with Peter. That he used Peter's life and Peter's faith to strengthen and encourage others. Which leads us to Matthew 14:30 through 33. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshiped him, saying, Truly you are the Son of God. I want you to see Jesus uses our failure when we turn back to him. As Peter let the world around him distract him from the great things Jesus gave him to do by walking on water to him, we see Peter do that, right? Peter's fear kept him from continuing in God's greatness. And as soon as he brought his focus off of Jesus, he began to sink and fail in the great task God gave him. But he's not the only one that failed. The rest of the followers on the boat before this were terrified of the storm. And when Jesus is walking out, when they first see him, they don't go, oh, look, there's Jesus. They go, oh, it's a ghost. And they get scared. And they begin to freak out. But I want you to see something. Because here's the other part of that is, they missed the opportunity to follow Jesus in that moment. And even though they had all failed in major ways, and they're going to continue to fail in major ways throughout their life, Jesus doesn't leave them. Peter didn't drown. The apostles didn't get left by Jesus. And Jesus very easily could have said, Peter, if you listened to me, you would have made it. Figure it out on your own now, son. He could have said when they freaked out in the boat, oh, it's a ghost. Well, deuces, if you think I'm a ghost, I'm out of here. But he didn't. He said, let me help you. I am Jesus. It's me. He reached down and lifted Peter up. But I also want you to see that they had to turn back to Jesus first. Peter, as he starts to sink, didn't thrash around and try to save himself. What's the first thing he does? Cries out to the Lord, Lord, save me. And he's crying to Jesus, Jesus, save me. And when Jesus got on the boat, the apostles immediately worshiped him. They didn't keep panicking and freaking out. They turned to him in worship. And Jesus then continued to lead all of them and train them in how to live and how to do great things after this moment to be used for great things in the church. Just like Peter and the apostles, all of us are going to have failures. And maybe your failures are sins. And maybe that's where you're at, is you have sinned somewhere in life, or maybe you're in the middle of sinning yourself, and you think, Jesus can't use me. He can't save me because of my past. Or maybe you're in the boat that you're following Jesus, but you lose focus because of the world around you. And I will tell you, maybe this weekend, some of you are sitting, even as you came into worship, thinking about all the stuff that just happened in the last 2 days, right? The last couple weeks. I know of a lot of Christians that I talk to them, they go, how are you doing? How's your spiritual life going? I don't know, I'm just bogged down by the Epstein files. I'm bogged down what's happening in Iran. I'm bogged down by this and that. And just all this stuff has just got me so anxious and upset. We're letting it take us away. And it's happened to a lot of us. And what Jesus is saying is, turn to me. If you've got a past, I'll forgive it. I'll save you. Just trust me. If you got distracted, turn back to me. I'll give you peace. I will pull you out of that. You don't have to worry about what's happening in the world around you. I will do great things for you. I will do great things through you. Don't give up on me. I will use you. Just turn back to me. At the beginning of the service, we heard the prayer of someone who has not done great things for God. Now, let's listen to the response of the